my favorite part here, it's about the whole idea of socialism, where socialism and communism's aim eventually is to take over the means of production from the capitalist, and the means of production and running of corporate companies will then eventually be done by the working class, you know. And you can look everywhere, you can do your researches and so forth, you'll never find a place where the socialist or the communist tells you of how they're going to run those businesses. Actually, the process of taking over a private company. Let me just give you an example. A company, somebody starts a company and then they're running that company. They don't tell you how will the working class take over that company. Okay? They tiptoe around there. But if you actually go straight into Karl Marx and communist documents, the aim is to overthrow corporate companies' owners, all of them, by the working class or the workers of that specific company. Altogether, obviously, it will be a group, one side of the working class. Overthrow the capitalists, overthrow the CEOs, overthrow the shareholders of companies, and then running those companies, okay? Because one thing that I can tell you is that there's no step-by-step way of employees who are belonging to a union who are going to sit down and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Mr. CEO, we're nominating one of our workers here to run this company, and we're also nominating some of our workers here to be board members, and finally we're nominating another number of people whom we have agreed that they're going to be the shareholders of this company. By the way, there wouldn't even be no shareholders because the company will be belonging to everyone else.
Socialist society is a society in which the working class who are fighting, who are in constant exploitation by the capitalist class, finally overcome the exploitation and produce and begin to become direct producers, where whatever they produce for themselves, and they don't produce it and give it to the boss, and the boss gives them a wage. So we spoke about capitalism. Capitalism being a system where production is for profit's sake, where everything that is produced in society, generalized form of production, is for profit and for its maximization. Why do people wake up? If all of us, if you want to survive, you have to go participate in this system of producing for profit's sake. Otherwise, you're going to die. You want to have food, you want to have many things, you'll beg on the street, but you'll be begging people who are working or people who are in the system of producing for profit's sake, where profit is an end in itself. There's no surviving. There's no getting out of it. Even if you say, me, I'm a pastor, I'm a man of God, you to eat, you're going to depend on the system in which everything is driven, that is produced for the maximization of profit.
And my other favorite part is where Dr. Ndlozi discusses a commodity, you know, the use value of a commodity, where the commodity could be exchanged for a value, or also its value, what that commodity does, you know. And then he starts breaking it down, breaking down the calculation as to, as an employee, as a working class, this is the amount of money that you then deserve to get. He starts giving an example about a pencil.
This is the law of value. This is the central idea in Marxism. The idea of understanding value is the idea of understanding social relations. So one is this concept called commodity or a product. So for Karl Marx, commodities are things we produce in order to sell in the market. Other things that we produce for Karl Marx are not commodities. A thing becomes a commodity at a point at which it is sold in the market. But inside the are three kinds of values. One is use value. And for Karl Marx, use value is the usefulness of the product for society. Unless it's not useful for society, he doesn't think that it's use value. So the pen, the important use of the pen is that we write with it. That is its use value. Okay? It's very simple. That is the entity number one, the feature number one that is inside a commodity. The second value that is inside a commodity is its exchange value. So its exchange value is basically the ratio at which a product is exchangeable for other products. So for instance, we say 1 pen is equals to 5 pages, or 1 loaf of bread is equal, or one bottle, 1 liter of Coca-Cola is equals to loaf of bread, something like that. Or so that is what exchange value means. Means once the commodity has a use value, once we determine its use value, then we say the second type of value in it is how much can it be exchanged for other commodities. The exchange value of all goods can be expressed in money. That's what market value means, is that it's this ratio expressed in monetary terms. But after the alterations in demand and supply. What is demand and supply? If I'm a supplier of oranges, I've got 3 oranges. I'm a supplier. I've got 3 oranges. I put them in the market. My 3 oranges are there. If there's only one demand of an orange, it will make the price of these oranges to be cheaper. But if I've got 3 oranges and there are 5 people looking for them, it may make the price of each orange higher in order for it to ultimately be in the hands of 3 people. Okay? That's, basically what a commodity, as it were, means. Now, so the mystery here is, so where does profit come from? Where does profit come from in the whole of the price of a commodity? If this price is 3 rand, what in this 3 rand, how do they extract profit? How do they make what is called a surplus? And Karl Marx's answer to that is wage. Is that in order for us to understand the origins of profit, the origins of profit is wages. And this is because I'll just basically do the maths for those interested in the maths. So for instance, the theory goes, or the theorem or the formula goes, okay, let's say 2 multiplied by 5 is equals to 2 multiplied by 5. If 2 multiplied by 5 is 10, and also 2 divided by 20 is 10, the common denominator here is 10. We only know that 2 multiplied by 5 is equals to 2 divided by 10 because they both result into 10. So he says, if all commodities in the market, if this is exchangeable for 3 stock sweets, and these 3 stock sweets are exchangeable for 1 orange, and 1 orange is exchangeable for 2 apples, what is the common denominator there? Because that particular movement of things, it's already at a later stage. It's at the stage of selling. What is common? What is it that is the common denominator of all that is produced? He says it is labor. So Karl Marx says it's because when a worker works, he works, the calculation of their labor power is on the clock. If I work for 8 hours a day and I'm producing pens, okay? So I produce, or let's take a single pen. I produce 1 pen in 8 hours, all right? Or I produce, take 1 pen, I produce 1 pen in 8 hours. After producing that pen, it took me 8 hours to produce that pen. The capitalist takes it and he says, okay, I pay Mbuyiseni 2 rand to produce this pen. He gives me my 2 rand. Then he says, in order for me to have produced this pen, I had to have a factory, I had to have the raw materials. And these raw materials cost me 3 rand. He goes and pays these raw materials. 3 rand, 3 rand, 3 rand, 3 rand. And then he's left with a pen. So it's the 2 rand, he adds the price of a pen. He takes 3 rand of the raw materials, he adds into the price of a pen. If he sells 2 rand plus 3 rand at 5 rand into the market, then he's breaking even. There's no surplus. In order for him to make surplus, he has to add. But where does he take this time? Where does he take this time? Because if he's going to add another price on top, where does it come from? So he forces the laborer to take a pen that he produces at 8 hours, not at 2 rand, but at 2 bob or 20 cents. Okay? Then gives the worker 20 cents, gives pays the raw materials, and then that is how he's able to then sell the product at its exchange price, and he makes profit by robbing who? The worker. Of course, many people may say, if you're thinking about it on the basis of the individual worker, you may not fully appreciate. So Karl Marx says it's not really depending on one single individual. Remember, dialectical materialism is that we always have to locate the individual in social relations. So truly the labor that you are as an individual contributing is depending on all our labor that people who are producing the same product or the product that came into that production cycle are concerned. So, and it calls this labor, the sort of aggregate labor. So if the socially necessary time to produce pen is 8 hours and you produce it in 3 hours, it will still sell at an 8-hour sort of price.
A pencil. I don't know how much a pencil is. Maybe I should ask my young one's mom as to how much a pencil is. But anyway, here is a pencil. So he gave examples. I'll also give examples of mine in terms of the prices. So he would say, when this pencil is being produced, it would eventually cost about 10 rands. So you would say that when an employee works for like 8 hours, you start at 7 o'clock up until 4 o'clock, and you produce one pencil. Alright, one pencil, that's about 10 rand. If you take, maybe let's say, because of you're working for 8 hours, and you're supposed to produce one pencil in 8 hours, and you take about, let's just say 2 hours to produce this pencil, then that will be how many pencils? 2, 4, 6, 8. It means you're producing 4 pencils. You're producing more pencil than you're allowed to be getting. So if you're getting paid 2 rands per pencil, and then the owner of the company is then going to get the 8 rands, and then he starts talking about the additional 3 pencils that you've already produced, right? So you've already produced additional pencil, which means you've got an extra 6 rands plus the other 2 rand of this pencil. Then you deserve to get paid 8 rands. So the owner of your company is robbing you of your pencil. I mean, and there's where he's talking about, obviously, capitalism as this evil system which always goes out for profit. The aim is to make profit, to overproduce stuff in order to make profit. Think about it. So he doesn't include the cost of, say, the company that you're going to be buying this timber from, that's about to make a pencil, the company that you're going to buy the lead from, that is making this pencil. And he also talks about the machineries, like in the future there will be machineries that are going to be used, obviously, which is like a wet dream for the capitalists, because if they're using more machineries, it means they're going to get rid of workers. If the doctor takes his time to watch one of these BBC programs, The Factory, you will see there are programs where how pencils are made, how beer is made, how cheese is made, you know, how beef sausages are made. Even with these pencils, there are industrial machines that are used to make these pencils. You will see a whole lot of pencils being cut at a certain speed. You know, also the temperatures and the materials that are going to be gluing the pencil together. The good doctor doesn't encompass this into the cost of the pencil that's going to be done. You see? And by the way, the brilliance of individualism, what they call the rugged individualism, you know, individual entrepreneurship, this is the perfect example. Because back in the day, people used to use, I think it's called graphite. They found graphite somewhere else for making pencils, and they started writing down with this graphite, and then somebody then found a method of where they can just make that graphite being some sort of a lead, where then they're going to be able to write with it, you know. So imagine waiting for a community, going to a whole community and say, guys, we've been writing with ink and a bird feather, to write. You just dunk in that bird feather into an ink and start writing. We find this material which is great, guys. I need somebody to, let's put our head together in order to form something. And people are like, you know, go away. But if you, for the person who invented this pencil, found a niche in the market, and now, as much as we're taking things such as pencil for granted, they are the things which made it possible, you know, up to an age where we are now, being able to communicate with your laptops and so forth.